Welcome back to Porterverse OCs. For the first time in this channel's history, we'll be focusing entirely on a big city based character. This is my original character, Kacela. If you recall from about almost a year ago at the time of recording this, I started working on an articulated logging engine as a model. This will become the OC Kacela, and if you couldn't tell, she is arguably my largest model to date and also the largest OC so far. And is one of the more energetic, I'd say. Like previous episodes in this series, we will first explore her backstory, and then her present-day whereabouts. And then we'll also go into the character itself. It is quite the journey, so without further ado, let's begin. It all began with a log. A log washed up on shore of Bignonia. Examiners discovered that the composition of the wood was different and a little unique in color. It was named Joby wood, and was found to be really strong and good for burning. Word of this Joby wood reached the state's capital of Big City in 1887, and a plan was put forth to establish a logging site on Misty Island, the origin of this log. The up-and-coming Big City Railroad was given the reins of this project, and it created a subsidiary of itself for this operation. The subsidiary was named the Big City Logging Railroad. Construction took some time, but was finally completed in 1894, and the Big City Logging Railroad's operations could begin at last. Some time passes, and engines are built for the railroad. Eventually, a new engine is needed. In 1917, it was determined that having all three logging engines haul the long trains was inefficient, and also quite dangerous as it put quite a strain on their boilers. Following this, drawings are cooked up by the engine works and approved. But plans for this newer, larger engine were halted due to the war efforts. By 1921, construction could begin on the engine. This engine was a massive 2662 tender engine capable of hauling enormous trains, and could even burn Joby wood itself in the event of a coal shortage. The engine was named Kacela. Kacela was the one who would haul out the massive log trains from Misty Island and into the Bignonian mainland and into Big City. Kacela was really strong, and it actually took her crew a bit of time to get used to her sheer strength. Kacela worked with the Big City Logging Railroad from her construction in 1921 all the way through World War II and well into the 1950s. By 1959, the logging efforts had deforested 92% of Misty Island, and demand for logging had dried up. By this point, the original three purpose-built logging engines were long out of service, and Kacela was all that was left. Kacela's future was looking very bleak by 1962, when it was announced that the Big City Logging Railroad would cease all operations and auction off its equipment. Kacela was to be sold at auction. The auction saw loads of bids come in from scrapyards, and many of them held the top spots for a good while. But a last-second bid from a collector was what ended the whole ordeal. This collector was the same person who owned a lot of other engines and did rail tours. If you recall from some of my very older videos, this will be the company known as Hiroshi Rail Tours. Hiroshi Rail Tours will purchase Kacela and make her one of their engines. That means Kacela canonically met Hiro. That is really weird to think about. Kacela was repainted into company colors and put into rail tour service, often double-heading trains with Hiro cross-country tours. Depending on the rail tour itinerary, they would stop at little carnivals, festivals, and other little events across the country to small towns, almost like a traveling carnival or fair. Hiroshi Rail Tours went bankrupt in 1969, in the middle of a tour no less, and everything ground to a halt. The engines were parked in a nearby old carriage set in the outskirts of New York while the owners wrestled through the whole mess. In the end, the company was dissolved, and the equipment was to be liquidated. Hiro, Kacela, and a handful of engines in rolling stock were put on auction and sold off to the highest bidders. Most of the other engines had varying fates, notably Hiro being sold off to a collector on Sodor. Kacela was the last one to be sold off, and looked like she would be heading to the scrapyard, but again at the last second she was saved, and she will go into a perfect home, the Big City Transportation Museum. The new up-and-coming museum was very eager to obtain more steam locomotives for display, and eventually even operate some of them. Kacela was one of the earliest purchases by the museum, and they promptly had Kacela move back home to Big City for a repaint. Kacela was repainted back into her original Big City Lug and Railroad colors, and put on display in the museum's roundhouse by 1971. Kacela now resides at the Big City Transportation Museum as part of its engine roundhouse, and has been quite popular with visitors. As of 2025, she is only a static display, and has only moved onto the turntable on occasion, but there are plans to return the steam before 2030. But we'll just have to wait and see how those unfold. Kacela can be described as a chaotic good. She means well, and often proves it in the craziest ways possible, but is kind of goofy in the same sense too. This is how she gained some of her scars. Kacela was documented preventing serious accidents and aiding in rescue efforts without hesitation. She deeply cares about helping others, and will do anything to help anyone in need. On the other side of the coin, Kacela is an enjoyer of a lot more simpler things in life too. She absolutely loves sending trucks flying down a line and goofing around in general. Kacela lives for the action in life. You can just imagine the utter insanity of her letterbox ratings for movies. Her top 3 movies, in her opinion, are John Wick Chapter 4, Transformers Dark of the Moon, and Terminator 2 Judgment Day. All these are very action-heavy movies. In terms of what Kacela sounds like, I would say she sounds most like Marin M. Miller. For a better idea what she sounds like, I would recommend the anime Dungeon Meshi. It's on Netflix and it's a whole lot of fun. I absolutely love it. Kacela sounds like Namari from Dungeon Meshi. Overall, Kacela is a chaotic good sort of engine who lives for the action in life while also caring deeply about those around her. So that was Kacela, one of the more unique OCs of mine. I gotta say, it was a lot of fun crafting certain parts of the Big City Railroad for this. Guess it's now kind of acts as a guide rail for when I make the Rails of the Porterverse episode on it. I still have yet to start full development on that, as trying to make this whole AU of Big City work in terms of like geography and everything is pretty difficult because I want it to make still more sense without completely changing the course of human history. So, yeah. But I am hoping to get the video out probably during the summertime this year. Hopefully. But for the time being, expect some more model videos and other standalone videos as well. Future is pretty bright for the channel. Thank you all very much for watching this episode of Porterverse OCs, and I shall see you all same time next week.